This is the Uncommon Success Podcast, where we explore topics about success and dive into the stories of leaders who found success along the way.
And success isn't easy. It takes some grit, a little bit of luck, and a whole lot of patience.
We know that success comes in many shapes and sizes, and we're exploring them all.
So get ready for a journey through the remarkable stories of individuals who have faced challenges head on and learned many lessons along the way.
From business moguls to artists, educators to industry leaders, entrepreneurs to athletes. If it's an uncommon success story, we'll cover it.
The Uncommon Success Podcast. Real stories, real people, real success.
This episode is brought to you by Give Me 3 Boutique. Give Me 3 is a female-owned business boutique that started in 2017 at the kitchen table of Tracy Behringer. They saw explosive growth during COVID and just won the Bossier Chamber of Commerce's Small Business of the Year. They have a great collection in stock, but also offer customized and personalized items, providing gifts for any and all occasions. Check out their website at www.shopgiveme3.com. That's shopgiveme3.com. Or give them a call, 318-918-9289. They're located in Bossier City, so go by and give them a visit.
Welcome to episode 7 of the Uncommon Success Podcast.
Yes, welcome to our community. We're glad that you're tuning in today. My name is Andy Coats, and I am your host. And I'm joined today by a special co-host, one of my super and talented nieces. The first niece I had, Mackenzie Coats, is in the house. So welcome, Mackenzie.
Thanks, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're glad you're joining us today. But, you know, Mackenzie, I watched her grow up into a pretty fine young lady. She's done a great job. She's in college now, and so I asked her to come join us this week as Brinley is out once again. And Shayna didn't come back to help us out this week, so I said, Mackenzie, look, you're related to me. I got to have somebody this week. And she gladly said, yes. So thank you, Mackenzie, for joining us. But we really are most interested in, we have a special guest in the house, in studio with us today. And I'm excited to introduce to you our special guest, Miss Emily Hayes. Emily's here with us in studio. So welcome, Emily.
Hey, thanks so much. I'm glad to be here.
Glad you're on the show. We're excited to hear your story today.
Yeah, for sure. Before we jump into that, this week we celebrated President's Day. So I thought before we dive into your story and have some discussion a little bit with you today, Emily, I want to give you guys just some fun success facts about presidents. So we're going to test your knowledge a little bit here. I'm going to ask some questions and just see how well you guys do. All right, so I'm going to give you a big success that happened, and then I'm going to ask a question. So big success number one, these are presidential successes. Big success number one I put on here was naming the White House. Do you have any idea who named the White House the White House?
I'm going George.
George Washington?
Yeah.
I feel like Abraham Lincoln, question mark?
Nope. So I found this to be kind of interesting. It didn't happen until 1901. Before 1901, it was called the Executive Mansion or the President's Palace. But Theodore Roosevelt actually named the White House the White House. I guess he didn't like it being called the Palace, and it looked white to him, so he said, call it the White House. So that was his, I would say that's his claim to fame, but, you know, he's had quite a few.
He did do some other things.
Too. Big success number two for presidents, creating the Declaration of Independence, which is a pretty big deal, you know, for us as a country, going all the way back to July 4th of 1776. But as I was looking at this, I found an interesting statistic about some presidents who signed this declaration. There are 2 presidents who died on the same exact day, and they were both signers of the Declaration of Independence. Any thoughts on who those 2 presidents might be?
None.
I am going to get in so much trouble for this. My family is like obsessed with Hamilton, and I feel like they would all know the answer to this, but I'm going to go the 2 that died on the same day.
Died on the same day.
John Adams, and Thomas Jefferson.
That is exactly correct.
You got it.
Yes, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson.
I can go home.
Yeah, you can go home now. And Mackenzie, you probably won't be able to go back to college now. Yeah. I found it interesting. So both of them signed the Declaration of Independence. They were the second and third president, and they died 50 years after signing the Declaration. Both of them on the same day. If you had to guess what day that might have been, Any thoughts on what day that was?
Going July 4th.
July 4th. They died exactly 50 years after signing the Declaration of Independence. On the same day, on Independence Day. Big success number 3 was ending the Civil War. Which president ended the Civil War? What do you think?
I think Mac has this. Come on.
Was it Lincoln?
That's who most people would answer that question for. But before the Civil War officially ended, he got shot. So he actually, so a lot of people, attribute him to being the one who ended the Civil War, but it wasn't. It was actually Andrew Johnson who quickly after that signed the declared. Now, Lincoln did, I guess, set the slaves free. So that was the big
success,
big swing that took place in the Civil War, in the Emancipation Proclamation. But it wasn't until after he died that Andrew Johnson did it. So just some interesting statistics and facts about presidents, being President's Week, I guess, after President's Day. One more thing here about presidents. The oldest president to ever live, he's still alive today. So he's the oldest president ever to live. He's 99 years old. Any idea who that might be? Yep, yeah. Jimmy Carter. Still alive, 99 years old. October 1st of this year, he will turn 100 years old. When I was in 8th grade, we took a trip down to New Orleans. Here in Louisiana, you take like a Louisiana history class, and I think it's 8th grade. We took a trip down to New Orleans as part of our Louisiana history trip, and we're in downtown New Orleans, and Jimmy Carter comes running down the street out on a jog. And that's been probably 30 years, 25, 30 years ago now, I guess. 27, 28 years ago. And I would have guessed he was 100 years old back then. But he turns 100 years old, and I remember thinking, God, I've lived a lot of life since I saw him. Yeah. But man, he's still ticking. So 99 years old. Let's hope he makes it to October 1st. We'll check back in on the podcast and see if he makes it, or maybe we gave him some bad mojo here by talking about that. But October 1st is his birthday. He'll turn 100 years old. So just some fun facts for our President's Week this week.
That was good.
Yeah. And you guys did. You did. I'm real surprised by the answering that question. I was pretty impressed.
I literally could not have gone home. I mean, I would have been met at the door with just stay outside.
Just so your family knows, we did this. We had 7 different takes on this. And I told her the answer, and she still finally got it right. No, I'm just kidding. She got it right the first time. Well, before we jump into our topic, Mackenzie, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Emily? We've been talking about presidents, so let's talk about.
What a segue.
Yeah, the president of
nothing.
Well, we'll find out in your bio what you're the president of. How does that sound?
Okay.
Emily Moore Hayes was born and raised in Shreveport, Louisiana, a proud graduate of Caddo Magnet High School. While working for a nonprofit overseas, she met her now husband, Phil Hayes. They came back to Shreveport for what was supposed to be a short season. That season is currently in year 15. After years at home raising babies, Emily entered the real estate field in 2016. A very accidental businesswoman, she quickly found success in our local market. In 2019, she and Andy Osborne teamed up as business partners, and in 2022, they ventured out on their own, opening their own real estate brokerage, Osborne Hayes Real Estate. Emily is the principal broker, and she enjoys both investing in her agents and helping clients buy, sell, and invest. Emily's new business venture is Northport Sports, a soon-to-be-open sports complex in North Shreveport. Partnering with her husband and her father on this adventure, they have completed phase 1 of an extensive renovation project. Emily is the proud mom of 4 children. She is actively involved in her church at Broadmoor Baptist and in her local soccer community. She loves to travel and is aiming to read 200 books this year.
So a couple of impressive things for me. 1, 200 books. I asked you about this when you sent me the bio to make sure this wasn't a mistake.
No, it's not a mistake, but I haven't. That's been my goal for 4 years.
Yeah.
I keep getting closer, but I haven't hit it yet.
So Mackenzie asked her this question. I said, have you done this before? 200 books in a year? I thought maybe it was 20 because I shoot for getting, the best I've done is a book a month. And I thought maybe she meant 20. She's going to shoot for almost 2 books. But so I asked her how many. Tell us how many books that you have read in 1 year.
174.
174 books. I know people who haven't read that many books in their entire life, and you've done that in 1 year. So this year, shooting for 200.
Yeah.
How's it going so far?
Not very well.
You got to get busy, huh?
Yeah. I'm at 28.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That's not bad, though.
Yeah.
How many books a month is that?
It's like 16 and a half. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I read them. I don't listen to them. Just I'm like kind of a snob about that.
So it's not even book on tape.
No,
Like you're not listening.
we're
in the
not
car.
audibling. No,
You
we're
are
reading. Yes.
Reading that's impressive. I'm real impressed by that. The other thing that I think caught my attention in your bio is you don't understand the word of a short season, because you were supposed to move back for a short season, and
I know.
Here you are 15 years later and still.
I know. We
rocking
were stopping in.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
swinging by
On our way to the next thing, and we are still here.
waiting
Yeah.
on the next thing,
Uh-huh.
or just,
No. We have finally resigned ourselves, like probably 2 years ago.
Yeah,
I think we're staying.
that's awesome.
Yeah, I think we're in.
I love it.
Took us 13 years.
Well, I would like to just take a moment here. I want to spotlight this new venture you're taking on. So you've been in the real estate world for a few years now, and recently you guys she mentioned it, the Northport Sports. I want to tell our audience a little bit about Northport Sports, and we'll hear more about it a little bit in your story, but I want to just share a little bit about it. Emily Hayes, along with her husband Phil and father Gary Moore, have turned the old Trinity Heights Christian Academy in North Shreveport, over off Old Morningsport Road for you local folks, into Northport Sports. A sports complex featuring volleyball and pickleball courts, along with a baseball field and a softball field. And they still have the old football stadium that's kind of out there. I don't know how useful that thing is, but it's
Super
still
useful. A soccer club's moving out there this fall.
There you go.
Yeah.
So all kinds of options out there for sports. Teams and organizations can rent parts of the facility for practice or for games or tournaments. In fact, this year a church even plans on hosting a field day at the facility. This is a multi-phase project with $2 million already being invested into the project in phase one, and they hope to bring a quality sports complex to the area. They'll be opening daytime pickleball courts starting this next week, and you can find them on Facebook or contact them at 318-218-7418. So check them out. That's Northport Sports in North Shreveport.
Well, this is episode 7, Overcoming Fear and Taking Risk. And we have the most fearless risk taker of all time in the studio with us here today.
That's right. Emily actually wrote that in, told us that we had to say that for the podcast.
She did not.
That she is. No, I'm just kidding. I do want to take a second. We want to chat some about your story. But before we do that, I want to give a little framework for today for our listening audience as we are talking about risk and talking about overcoming our fears. We do know that, like, there are many fears and stuff maybe you face that you deal with, and we by no means are doctors. Emily's not a doctor. She's not a medical professional. We're not counselors. So when we're talking about fear and risk, we're mainly speaking from a business or leadership position. And so even today, we're not trying to come from a clinical perspective. As you're sharing your story, we know that there are opportunities that people things they may be going through, and they need to find an opportunity that's bigger than just listening to a podcast to seek out that help. And so we're not coming from that clinical perspective when it comes to
That's good.
facing fear and risk.
Dang, I thought you two were really going to help me work through some issues today because I am terrified of coloring.
Of coloring?
Coloring, I actually hate it. Can't color inside the lines, and it's just not something.
Well,
Wow.
I don't know that we'll be able to quite help you with that. Today we are going to be talking through some things, and psychology is definitely involved in this. But the coloring issue, I'll help you out after this. Okay?
That's
we'll have
not for me.
Yeah, we'll go through
You
some
have other
coloring
gifts.
therapy.
You have other gifts.
Stick with those. Huh?
I will.
Yeah.
I'll try.
But there is some psychology involved in this. We know that. We know that anytime you're dealing with risk and fear, there is psychology involved. But we're just not going to try to provide solutions from that clinical perspective. But I did read an article that kind of framed up this topic. And when I thought about it, that's why I asked you to be on the podcast, just knowing your story a little bit. I read this article that's called The Biggest Fears Holding You Back from Success. And here's what they listed as the top 10 biggest fears holding people back. The fear of inadequacy, the fear of uncertainty, the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of missing out, the fear of change, the fear of losing control, the fear of being judged, the fear of something bad happening, and the fear of getting hurt. But those are the 10 things that hold most people back from success. So when it comes to success, these fears are very real for people. They're dealing with these issues. There's many of us, we've walked through these things quite a bit. So we know that that's definitely something that's very real for people. Maybe you're listening today and you're like, man, I'm struggling with my own journey, and some of those fears are very real. Well, hopefully today we can offer some guidance and insights from dealing with some of those.
Which one of those jumps out to you the most?
What do you think, Emily? Of those that list there, which one of those would you say jumps out?
Probably being inadequate.
Yeah.
The fear of inadequacy.
That's good.
I don't know if I can do this. I think we tell ourselves that a lot.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. If you can swallow that and like push through, there's something good.
Yeah.
But it's hard to swallow sometimes.
I think for me, the fear of failure, I think that's the one that jumps off the page to me. In my own journey, it's like just not wanting to mess up. It's like I want to start something, but I don't want to mess it up. What about for you?
Rejection. I don't like being told like no or not now.
Okay.
Just applied for nursing school, and I'm like terrified because I'm like, what if I get told no? Like, what's next? What do I do with that? Because that comes with a major change. All these things that I'm like, I don't know, like what happens if that like doesn't go through.
Yeah, and that really it can create these fears. What fear designed to do is to cause that paralysis in us, to hold us back from the fear. And maybe you're watching or listening today, and one of those jumps off the page for you today. Well, hopefully as we kind of delve into your story a little bit, maybe there's something in Emily's story a little bit that'll help you out and be inspiring to you. That's what we're aiming for today, is just to talk through this topic a little bit, knowing that none of us, although we said you're the biggest risk taker, most successful something.
I know, it was good. I wish I knew where that was.
Yeah. Well, we framed that up for you. We're going to give that to you at the end.
Okay, good.
But the reality is we all face fears, and we all have to deal with those fears. So overcoming them is really walking through them, and so we want to jump into that. So Mackenzie, why don't you kick us off with our first question for Emily today as we find out a little more about our guest as we walk through her story.
So can you share with us a bit about your journey of what led you into real estate?
I hate this question because my story is it was just accidental. I was the president of the PTA.
See, I knew you were president.
I
knew it.
I was, and I quit. Because I was afraid. No, I was the president of the PTA, and it was Teacher Appreciation Week. And if you have ever lived through a Teacher Appreciation Week for your children, you fall in one of two camps. It's either the people that just want to send a check, or the people that care very deeply about the tablecloth and the decor and the door decoration.
Yeah.
I am not the second one.
Okay.
And I love the teachers. The teachers get all the presents from me. That I love my kids' teachers. However, I am not a detail person, and I found myself in conversations over and over and over about the tablecloths. And I went home one day and I said, I cannot do one more tablecloth discussion. And Phil, who's very even and very easy, he said, well, then get a job.
There
I was
you
like,
go.
what? He's like, well, if you get a job, you can say to them, oh, I can't come. I have a job. And I enrolled in real estate school that day. And I finished that week. It took me a week to finish.
Okay.
And the next time they said, hey, do you want to help with this dinner? I was like, no, I have a job. And so that's how I accidentally ended up in real estate. It was either going to be real estate or be a travel agent.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad I chose real estate.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was totally accidental.
Yeah.
It was totally just, I think it'd be fun to sell people houses. If you've ever been in the real estate world, you know that that's very little of the job, and most of it is not that fun.
Right.
But that's what I thought when I said, yeah, I have a job, so I don't have to go to Teacher Appreciation Week.
To avoid those PTA conversations
Isn't
with
that
those
terrible?
moms.
We love the teachers, and we love the parents who are gifted that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just not me.
It wasn't you.
No.
Gotcha.
No, which is a good lesson. Like, operate in your lane.
Yeah.
If you're not good at something, be happy for the people that are and support them, but like, don't go in their lane. Stay in your lane.
Yeah. So you started out as an agent, I guess?
I started out as an agent and loved it, but didn't realize I was running a business until I had been running a business for a while and realized that the IRS wants a check. And I went, oh my gosh, I have a business. And because I was just happily selling people houses.
Right.
And it was a kick in the teeth, like, whoa, this is a real, okay, if this is a business and other people are seeing me as a business, then I've got to treat this like a business, which means that I have business hours and I don't answer my phone all the time and I have boundaries and I show up for work and I don't just do it from my couch. You know, there were things that had to shift in my brain when I realized, oh, this is a real business. So I did that, and Andy Osborne was a coworker, and he approached me about doing real estate a different way. And so in 2019, we became business partners and really happily bopped along. We were super successful. We sold a lot of houses. We still sell a lot of houses, but we were happy kind of where we were. Until one day we realized that the culture was the most important thing for us, and the culture had changed where we were. And it started this conversation of what does it look like to take the culture that we think is really important and to create it ourselves. And we realized it wasn't going to be as difficult as we thought it was. And so we decided, we'll make the jump. We'll do this on our own. And so that was it was very inadvertent. There weren't these long runways up to these plans. It was like, things aren't working. We need to make a change. Okay, there's a better way. Let's do that. Let's find that way.
So what ultimately made you take the step of faith to go from just being an agent into being a broker?
Yeah, well, one of us had to be the broker to open our own company. And we decided that was going to be me and not Andy. And so I went and took the test and once again didn't think about the ramifications of what it meant. When we decided to leave the place that we were, we thought the two of us would leave on our own and that would be it. And what we found out very quickly was that a bunch of people were coming with us. And it was such a compliment, such an honor, such a privilege that people want to work with us. But we were totally not equipped for that. And so what I thought broker meant was my name was on your license now means I'm managing an office full of people.
Right.
And so that was a big step once I realized kind of what that entailed. But it's been a great step. That's
good. So you've spent some time doing real estate and then shifted into the brokerage and leading from that position. But then at some point, an opportunity pops up. And walk us through what inspired you to take that leap into Northport sports. Like, tell us that story and what happened there.
Yeah, so, real estate's still my job. Real estate's still the thing I love. My husband still has a job. He's a chemical engineer that he loves. And my father has run an amazing business, Argent Financial, for years. You want to have a leader. He's kind of where I've learned a lot of this from.
Yeah.
But one of my children started playing competitive volleyball. We were going to Dallas every weekend, and we were going to these warehouses in really rundown parts of Dallas where they were charging us $30, $40, $50 for a weekend to see our kid play volleyball in a warehouse without a chair. You had to bring your own chair. And I was like, there is a model here.
Right.
And I'm looking around, and the more that we were going, we're like, there's nothing here. There's nothing like that here. And volleyball is a huge up-and-coming sport in our area, but really it's kind of been growing around the country. And so we started having these conversations. What would it look like if we built a volleyball gym? There's a couple of volleyball clubs here, but the biggest one doesn't have a home.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, all of these things are just kind of rolling around. They are all pieces that are going to fit together. We don't quite know how they're going to fit, but we're going to figure it out. And so we met with a builder to build us a gym, but land is expensive right now, and concrete was expensive when we were looking to build.
One thing you do know from being in real estate.
I know that land's expensive, and I know that building's expensive. And so we could afford two of the three pieces. We could afford the land and the concrete. We could afford the concrete and the building, but we couldn't afford land, concrete, and building.
Yeah.
And so we had to make some decisions, and we kind of, at the end of that meeting, were like, man, the man who we were meeting with a year earlier had purchased Trinity Heights Christian Academy. He said, let's get in the truck and drive up to the academy. And we were like, okay, fine, let's go drive up there, but this isn't going to work for us. And we had been on campus about 2 minutes, and we realized this is the place for us. It was a rundown. One of our kids said that it was like a war zone. Every window had been broken. There was not a thing that hadn't been vandalized.
Right.
But we were like, it already is built.
Yeah.
And there's our building problem, and there's already land. There's our land problem. Oh, wait, and there's a parking lot. There's our parking concrete problem.
Yeah.
So it solved a lot of those problems.
And even the building, there's already, as rundown as it was,
there's
there are
25
some
buildings.
Things, right.
Yeah. They were already there. And so we just kind of started an investigation process. And because of my background in real estate, if we can find tenants, then it works. The numbers work.
Yeah.
And that's really what we did. It was probably less dramatic than it should have been. It was kind of like, well, if we can find these tenants, then I think we do it. We found the tenants, and so it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
Me too. Many people fear when starting a new business, maybe uncertainty, failure, inadequacy. How do you overcome your fears and doubts in launching out into real estate and Northport sports?
Gosh, I mean, daily you have to swallow fear. In real estate, you're selling yourself to some degree to people who are being inundated with a bunch of other realtors who have information for them. And so what sets you apart, what makes you different? So I've been learning for the last 8 years how to not be afraid to put myself out there. In sports, sports were a huge part of my background. I was the goalkeeper. A lot of times the goalkeeper got scored on. So was that a failure, or was that just something that was something that happened that I had to learn how to deal with? And so there were all these things that, like, on paper it's a failure, Emily got scored on, but in reality it was an opportunity for me to learn. And so I think that's kind of how I've just shaped all of these risks. They don't seem like risks to me. They seem like opportunities to learn. And if you take an opportunity to learn and you fail, you've still learned. My very first year in real estate, the person that I was working for at the time, I said, my goal is to be on the billboard. And that was like a top producer role. And he laughed at me. I said, okay, bet, buddy. You know what I mean?
It's on.
It's on. Yeah. And every year I've set a goal that's been unrealistic in business, but maybe I'll get closer. And I think that's how I've had to reframe all of fear. It's like, you can call it failure. I've failed a ton, or you can call it progress, and that's what I call it.
Yeah, and that's such great advice. In general, I do that a lot myself. Even I try to set that bar high.
Yeah.
And then just, I may miss what the bar is, but even if I got close, it's still
better than status quo.
Than if I'd have made it, because easy. Taking something easy doesn't require risk.
That's right.
So you can check the box that you did it. So for you, what are some of those big risks you would say in your journey that you've had to take?
Yeah. Well, so when I was 21, I moved overseas to a non-English speaking country.
Wow.
And I knew the people on my team, and that was it. I didn't speak any Russian. I didn't speak any Kazakh. If I wanted to learn how to eat, I had to learn how to speak to get the bread or the vegetables or whatever that I needed, right? Yeah. And so, like, that's probably been the biggest risk I've ever taken in my life, but it was foundational because, like, if I can do that at 21 by myself, I can do anything, right?
Was it Russia? Is that where
it was Kazakhstan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is
like Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
21 years old to take that.
Yeah.
That's a huge step.
Yeah. And so, like, okay, I did that. Like, is it going to be that hard? And then also framing things. Like, in the grand scheme of life, I'm not a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like a big deal when I go home and my kids are like, oh, Mom, we love you, but I'm not a big deal. And so, like, my risks aren't big. They're not impacting people on, like, a big global scale. And so when you keep it in that perspective, it doesn't feel like things are hard. Now, leaving the brokerage we were at and opening our own place, that was terrifying.
Right.
Are people, do they have allegiance to the brand, or do they have allegiance to the person? And we found really quickly that they had allegiance to the person, but it was terrifying to think, what if their allegiance is to the brand and we missed it? Because then they're not coming with us.
Yeah.
With Northport, I mean, the biggest risk we've had to take is, like, the same thing. What if nobody comes? What if nobody follows? If nobody follows, then this doesn't work.
Yeah.
But just knowing that our people are going to show up for us. And in both situations, in real estate and in Northport, our people have shown up. And that's been the difference. That's been the difference maker. Our people who we have spent time investing in, who've invested back in us, not financially, but like in terms of relationship,
right.
They want us to be successful. And I don't think I realized when I started real estate that, like, people genuinely want good for you. They want you to be successful. They want to cheer you on. But when you think about it like that, like, it's easy to run fast and far because you've got all these people going, you're awesome.
Yeah, keep it in perspective and, like, know that you got people behind you who are with you.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's really cool that you can, like, see it that way. And, like, with risks comes setbacks. Like, what do you feel like your greatest setbacks were, and how have you, like, recovered or bounced back from those?
Gosh, our biggest setback at Northport has probably been just the length of construction, and then also dealing with the city.
Yeah.
You hear it a lot when people move here. They're like, Shreveport's not a government-friendly, citizen-friendly place. And my goal is to be like, here are all the amazing things about Shreveport. And there are so many. But being on this side of it now, it has been really hard for us to get this business open, to get the permit, to get the right person, to find the right office. And we have resources. We have people that we need to call and speed dial. We have financial resources, things like that. For an average person that just wants to open a business, it's got to be so overwhelming, because it's been overwhelming for us to figure it out and to navigate the system.
Yeah.
And I think there's going to be something that comes of that, like something good. I don't know what it is yet, but that's been really hard. It's been frustrating to get the letter in the mail, to go and get the denial on the permit. And you're like, come on, it was an abandoned homeless person compound for 15 years. And now you care that the striping on the parking lot isn't correct. You want us to have a tree island. We had homeless people. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
it's so irrational. But that's probably been the biggest just setback with Northport, is just how long it's taken. We haven't had many setbacks on the real estate side. I mean, God's been so gracious to us. It's just kind of gone. It's grown. It's been at a pace we can absorb. So thankfully, and I know it's coming at some point, but we haven't had like a major setback.
So what would maybe be some advice? Maybe there's someone watching or listening in our audience who they're looking at taking that entrepreneurial step. What would be some advice you'd offer to them in those initial stages of where they're maybe wrestling with those different fears?
Yeah. So a client of mine who is a friend, he said to me one time, Emily, money's cheap. And at that point, money was very expensive to me.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have a lot of money. When you don't have money, money's expensive.
Right.
But when you make the shift, and even before there was money available, making the shift to money is cheap, was very freeing for me, because then you realize, like, there's enough money out there to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
The reason we don't is because we don't ask. We don't ask people. We don't go to the bank. We don't go to the right lender. We don't go to 3 lenders because the first one doesn't tell us what we need,
Yeah.
And kind of making that shift to realize that, like, there's money out there, because that's a big hurdle for people. I don't have the money to do it. Okay, somebody does. Right. Let's go find them. Let's go connect you with those people, and then let's do that.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing. And then second, I would say, like, you have been gifted in certain ways that no one else has. And if you have that gifting, then use it. And if that means that you're supposed to open a business, like, you're going to be okay.
Right. You're
going to figure it out. And it goes back to that failure mindset. Or you have a growth mindset, or do you have a fixed mindset? Like, if you're growing, it's not failure. The first business may not work, but something is going to work. But you have to retrain your mind to not think, I'm a failure, I'm a loser, I'm terrible at this, and instead think, this is an opportunity for me to keep getting better. It's mental. I mean, the barriers to people starting businesses are internal. Yeah. 90% of the time, because you can find money.
You can find a way around the other ones.
You can find a way around all the other ones. Yeah. And that's not to minimize it. The internal ones are the hardest ones, and they're awful, and they're demons.
Right.
But like, if you can get past those things, someone will, with passion, someone will loan you the money.
Yeah.
Someone will give you a chance. Someone will find a way to help you, whatever.
Yeah.
That really, like, encourages me, because, like, I'm in college, so, like, college is a time where, like, money is expensive. Yeah. It's not cheap. Yeah. So it's like to see that, like, you can find a way if you really want a way. Mm-hmm. Like, it's encouraging.
You totally can. And, like, what can you do? That's what I did overseas. We taught women whose husbands had died as a result of different wars is microfinance. So you give them a chicken, you teach that chicken how to lay eggs, you give them the right environment to lay the eggs, and you teach that woman how to sell 6 eggs. Well, that's not money, but to her, it's a lot of money.
Right.
Right. And so, like, what do you have that you can use? What do you have that you could use right now that you can turn into a business making venture?
That's good.
And in your businesses, you must have a lot of people on your teams. How do you encourage them to maintain, like, courage in their own fears or challenges?
When I see someone courageous, I am more courageous, right? When I see someone scared, I'm more scared.
Right.
And so, like, I'm very transparent about the things that are hard. I don't hide, it's a terrible day. I just had a rough deal. We just had a setback. I don't hide those things from anybody in our office, and we don't hide those things at Northport either.
Yeah.
But when they see that like it was hard and then I got up and I came in the next day, or I moved on from that meeting to the next meeting, I think it encourages this environment where like there's going to be somebody with you when it's hard, and then there's going to be somebody with you when you need to be cheered on. And so it's just it's flipping that mindset from like being competitive and like you're my competitor to you're my collaborator.
Yeah.
And we're going to work together on this, even though we don't have shared businesses, but we're going to work together to get you a solution. I think that's what they would say. That there's like this community element that helps you be more courageous. Because when you're by yourself, it's hard to be brave. But when you're in community, it's like, well, these people are going with me, so we're either all dumb together or like this is going to work.
How many employees do you have? Or like,
well, I don't have employees.
Or
so
how many people work with you in the brokerage?
We have about 20 that work in the brokerage.
Okay.
And they're all their own independent contractors. They run their own businesses.
Which is why that's such a important thing to have that community, because they're all independent. So
That's
they're
right.
they're not employees.
That's
so
right.
they don't have a boss. So they're all independently trying to succeed in
They
their
don't have
own
a
right.
boss or a salary.
Right.
You kill what you eat.
Yeah.
You eat what you kill.
Yeah.
You don't kill what you eat. That's weird.
Yeah, so like they're out there grinding and they're having to work through all these fears. So you guys coming alongside them and being that partner and support for them along the way, that's so huge. And I know there's many people, maybe even listening to the podcast here, that as they're trying to work through their own entrepreneurial journey, there's things that they're hopeful for, wishing for, but they feel like, I'm in this by myself. Like maybe what would be just maybe a tip of advice when it comes to that community? Like what would you encourage for people?
Go find it.
Yeah.
When I started in real estate, I wouldn't go to the office until after 5 because I was afraid of all the other agents there.
Yeah.
I didn't want them to ask me questions. I didn't want them to like realize that I didn't know anything about real estate.
Yeah.
But then I decided, Brene Brown, do you know this author?
Yeah.
She talks about leading from a place of vulnerability. And part of that is like people need to realize that you want a connection, right? And so like, hey, go to coffee with me, not waiting for someone to ask for you to go to coffee, because they may not ask. And it's not because they don't like you. It's because they're feeling just as vulnerable to ask as you are, right? And so that was just a practice that I started kind of implementing early in my career. Like if there was somebody that was interesting to me, a client, a realtor, a realtor in my office or someone else, let's go to coffee. Let's go to lunch. I want to know you.
Yeah.
And then it's twofold. It helps your business grow, but it also gives you a friend,
Right.
And so my advice to someone who's like feeling alone is like, be vulnerable enough to tell someone, I'm alone and I like you and I want to be your friend.
Yeah.
Like that sounds really weird in this scenario, but like in general, if someone calls me and goes, hey, I just think you're cool, I want to get to know you better, I'm like, oh my gosh, when can we meet?
Yeah, in middle school that'd be weird for us. We're like, I don't know.
Right. But like as adults,
yeah.
like there are cool people that I need to know better, and
Yeah.
the only way I can know them better is if I initiate that, not waiting. I may not have crossed their radar, right? And so find your people and be actively pursuing them, not like creepy stalker pursuing them, but also not sitting on the couch waiting for them to call.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what a lot of women, especially, like, well, they didn't call me. Well, call them.
Yeah. Because they're probably thinking the same thing. They're sitting on the couch thinking the same thing. Like I feel lonely. I need someone to be around.
Yeah.
So go out there and pursue that community. What for you, in your journey, you have, a lot of successes, definitely some things that haven't worked along the way.
Sure.
I love your perspective on that, like just reframing it. What would be something that, as you think back on your journey, that you would say, this is the most proud of something I've accomplished or I've done? What would be one of those or a few of those things that just come to mind for you?
I mean, showing up. I could get emotional. I'm going to get emotional, apparently. Like, showing up and being present to do these things. That's
Yeah.
hard.
Right.
Why am I emotional like this? Because it's hard.
Yeah.
Because
and it's real, like that.
yeah.
Like everything against you would want to stop you from showing up. It's real easy to like not.
Yeah. Do people cry on your podcast a lot? No.
I mean, hey, whatever happens, happens. This
Yeah.
is an Uncommon Success podcast.
There you go. Crying is
any
apparently
response,
a pathway to success. No,
Yeah.
but really, like, show up and be vulnerable.
Yeah.
That's what I'm proud of.
Yeah.
I could have stayed on the PTA. I could have been, like, the best room mom.
Yeah.
Because I'm super competitive. And so, like, let me be
Right.
the best room mom, the best Sunday school teacher, the best, like, I'm going to have the best birthday parties for my kids, and that would have been fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's
Yeah.
not me. But I sure didn't think I was going to be a businesswoman. I sure didn't
Right.
think I'd have multiple businesses. And so, like, I'm really proud that I showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it would have been easy to say, I'm going to be this, and you'd have accomplished it. You'd have been the good PTA mom,
Yeah.
the good Sunday school teacher.
Yeah.
And you'd have easily been able to check the boxes.
Yeah.
But it would have left all the potential you had
Yeah.
just sitting there.
Yeah.
And taking that step was just
Yeah.
showing up to the table.
Showing up to the table.
Yeah.
And then getting the opportunity to help other people do it. Like,
Yeah.
you can show up too. You
Yeah.
may need somebody to, like, drag you there.
Right.
And some days I need somebody to drag me there, but you truly can show up. And if you
Yeah.
show up, like, I've got this agent right now. She had a terrible year last year. She had so much, like, personally chaotic just life happen. And then professionally, like, nothing worked. And sometimes in real estate, things just don't work. And there's
Yeah.
not really a reason or a rhyme. But this year when we sat down, she was like, it has to be different. Well, then come to the office. And so she has been, she sends me her calendar every week. Hi, Sarah Beth.
Shout out.
Shout out to Sarah Beth, because I'm really proud of her.
Yeah.
She's showing up, and, like, it's reflecting in her business. She's got more things in her contract at this point in the year than she did last year at all.
Yeah.
And she's a great agent. She just needs somebody to, like, drag her to the table. And then she had to be willing to say, like, I've got to do better. I want to show up. And so,
Yeah.
That's it.
Sometimes that's all you need too, just that extra push. But if you're doing it by yourself,
It's hard.
it's hard to show up to the table.
Yeah.
And it's harder to take a risk. You mentioned earlier, like just having someone who's models that. If someone else is scared, I'm more scared.
Yeah.
If someone else is courageous, though,
Yeah.
I'm more likely to be courageous. So if I'm doing it by myself, I'm stuck in my own emotion. So I love that showing up, not just for you, but I think for our listeners even. Hey,
Yeah.
just if you need
Show
to take
up.
a step,
Yeah.
show up.
Yeah.
To add what you're saying, I agree. Like, I feel like it's easier to stay in your comfort zone
100%.
of, like, just being president of PTA. But then, like, when you step out of it, there is so much more
Yeah.
than what you could even imagine.
Yeah.
It's just, like, it's one of those things that you do need someone just to push you out
Come on.
of your comfort
Yeah.
zone and lead you a step in the right direction.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes all it takes is that one push.
Yeah. And it's not easy. Getting outside of your comfort zone, it's not easy to do that. And sometimes it's terrifying. And all those fears I read earlier, all
Yeah.
of those fears can show
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
in an instant of things maybe you didn't even realize you were afraid of. All of a sudden they hit you. And it's tough. It's tough. But I love that the competitive side of you has been a helpful thing.
Channeled.
Like to be
Yeah.
able to leverage that and utilize that, I think is huge. But also I think there's a compassionate side of like, hey, I want to help other people along the way too.
Well, what's this for?
Yeah.
Right? What is this for me to have money in the bank? No. Is this for me to have the biggest brokerage in town? No. This is for me to invite people to be a part of it because they make us better.
Yeah.
The more people that join, the better. That's what it's for.
Yeah.
And so if that's your framework, then you live differently, you know?
That's great. So now what we'd like to do is we want to roll through what we call our rapid fire questions. All
Great.
right.
Okay.
So you've hit us with some great content already in our discussion, but now we just want kind of just give us your 30 to 45 second answer, whatever hits you.
Okay.
All right. So rapid fire. Mackenzie, why don't you kick us off with our first rapid fire question?
What do you love most about this current season of life you're in?
Being at home with my family. Being at home. Home is safe and it's like restful. The outside is pretty chaotic right now, but home is sweet.
That's good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a safe place to come back to. Mm-hmm. Love it. Mm-hmm. What piece of advice would you give to someone that somebody may have given to you?
So my business partner, my real estate business partner, Andy, we talk about hashtag kindness.
Yeah.
And like, don't be a jerk. You can accomplish the same thing being kind, or you can accomplish it being a total jerk. And like, don't be that guy. Don't be that girl. It's easier sometimes to be a jerk, but like, hashtag kindness.
That's good.
I like that. I like that a lot.
And so if one of us is getting a little like, we're like, kindness.
That's
I like
good.
it.
It's a good little check.
Who invested in you the most over the years?
That is like a mile long list. I have been the recipient of so much kindness from so many people. Like I could start in 4-year-old preschool and talk about like this legacy of people who have just like poured good into me.
Yeah.
In business, probably my office manager at Coal Banker. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that. Whatever. She poured into me.
Like no rules here.
No rules, whatever.
We're uncommon.
I try not to say it, but she poured into me a ton. Andy has been in the business a lot longer than me. He has just being in his office. I moved into his office and it was this shared space where I got to learn as he was on the phone. I'm listening to him like deal with things. And so he's been a huge mentor to me. There were women in college or older women while I was in college. I mean, it's a mile long of people who have just been willing to share something with me. And so that's why I'm willing to share. There's nothing in my hands that is closed. It's all open because people have been kind to share. That wasn't rapid.
It's all a gift given to you anyway.
That's
so
right.
Pass
So
it
share it.
right along. So I call this the $1 million question. All right.
Are you going to give me $1 million?
Well, so if someone's listening today,
please
and
give me $1 million.
They were to offer you, say, hey, here's $1 million to go toward Northport Sports.
Yes.
What would you guys?
I'll put your
use
name
that
on the
for?
court. We'll put it on the court for 3 years.
Yeah.
No, for life actually. We would turf things.
Yeah.
Yeah. We would turf fields and put up exterior lights.
That's a lot for that outdoor.
For the outdoor stuff. Yeah. Probably put it for $1 million. We could put in some outdoor pickleball too.
Yeah. Pickleball and turf fields.
And turf fields for soccer.
So if you are listening, you haven't been
please give me $1 million.
And you're like, hey, I've got $1 million. I need to invest in something.
Call me.
Call Emily, Northport Sports, and she'd be happy to put that money
I will.
to work.
I will. And I'll put your name on something.
Yeah, and your name can go on something.
I can go on anything you want.
The parking lot right
One
now,
of my
right?
children, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You just offered to tattoo one of your children in somebody's name. But hey, for $1 million toward Northport Sports, Emily's willing to make it happen.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know.
$2 million.
Okay.
I knew we could.
$2 million.
I knew we could find the number.
That's not the number,
That's not
but
the number.
no.
What do you feel is next for you with this next season of life?
That's good.
That's hard. I hope some rest. Like I started a business in 22, opened another business in 23. Now we're in 24 opening business number 3. Like maybe nothing in 2025, maybe some really good rest. I hope that's next.
I'm making another business is coming next year. Just get ready.
It'll be here.
It'll be here. It's happening. Awesome. I love it. Thanks so much for sharing a little sneak peek into
Sweet.
your story.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
Thank you so much for sharing your story today, and I just want to give a special thank you to our sponsors today, Give Me 3 and Northport Sports.
Yeah, we definitely want to thank our sponsors, and Emily, thank you for being on the podcast today. And Emily's going to stick around for those of you who are watching or listening for a few minutes for our Patreon discussion, where we do our inner circle, where we have a little behind the scenes, raw and real. The 3 of us will dive into a topic and have some great discussion. You don't want to miss that. So if you want to be part of that VIP weekly conversation, you can go to our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/the Uncommon Success Podcast. And for $7 a month, you can become part of what Brinley has deemed our Cool Kids Club, the inner circle of our Patreon. So check that out.
You can also follow us on all of our social media platforms on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. You can join Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Like, share, subscribe, and review. And please leave us some comments.
Yep, leave some comments, good, bad, and ugly. We learned last week on our podcast that, even bad comments are great because it's at least activity.
That's
so
right.
if you want to leave bad comments, that's great. We don't mind. Just leave good reviews, not bad reviews. But comments, feel free to throw them our way. Thanks again to our special guest, Emily Hayes, for joining us today. And thank you, Mackenzie, for co-hosting with me today. Join us next week as we discuss the topic, how to keep learning and growing.
Well, that's a wrap. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, great. Thanks. And we'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us on the Uncommon Success Podcast, where your commitment to growth fuels our passion to create more content. Special thanks to our executive producer, Jess Camp, and our technical director, Stephen Posey. We're excited about our episode next week and hope you would tune in to join us as we work together to continue our journey towards success. See you next time. Have a great week.